Let's create a simple to-do list. We will use that list to walk through some of the basics of React. I'm going to start off here with Visual Studio Code. I'm going to bring up the console, and I'm going to go ahead and create a React application. I'm going to go ahead and enter npx create React app, and I'm going to call it Listo. This is going to take a while. It's going to bring in a lot of scaffolding, packaging to deploy the application, some more scaffolding for testing and bundling, and we'll let that run because it'll take a while. Okay, that has installed. Let me go ahead and open up the file system so I can drag and drop that folder onto VS Code. And as you can see there, we get the default structure for VS Code applications. I'm going to go ahead and open up the source, and I'm going to open up index. And as you can see there, we have one component, which is app, and that's pretty much all we have. I'm going to go ahead and navigate to app, and as you can see here, that component is being created and then it's being exported out. So I'm going to go ahead and start working within this file. I'm going to delete everything that is here, and I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we'll build up from scratch. I'm going to have here React, and I'm going to go ahead and use state. Oops, I think I entered the wrong. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Let me go ahead and enter. Oh, I'm using the wrong type of evaluation here. I'm going to go ahead and use state, and I'm going to import it from React. Okay, good. So the next line is going to be to import my styles. I'm going to go ahead and import app.css. And I'm going to go ahead and overwrite the styles that have been packaged in the default application. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And I'm going to bring in some styles from a file that I have that I created previously. So you can see here, this is the style for the app, the to-do list, the to-do, and the input. That's all we need to do with that. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to write the core component, which we're calling app. I'm gonna go ahead and enter here function app, the body of the function. And before I forget, let me go ahead and export this component, export default app. Now inside of this component, we're going to create the initial state of the component, and we're going to use the use state that we declared on line 1. And so the use state returns two parameters. The first one is the initial state, and the other one is the name of the function that we will use to set the state once we need to mutate it. So I'm gonna go ahead and enter here ToDos, and then we're going to enter use state. The inside of it, we're going to have an array of objects, which will be our initial state. So I'm going to start off here with my first object. The first property is going to be the descriptive task that we're going to perform. And this one I'm going to enter learn React. Then I'm going to have a Boolean for is completed. And I'm going to initialize all of them to false. And that's it for the to-do. I'm going to copy and paste this one 3 times over. And then I will go ahead and update it. So the second to-do that I'm going to have is meet friend for lunch. Then the third one is build to do app. Okay, so that's the initial state that gets assigned to to-dos here. And the other one is the function that we can use to update this state. Next, we're going to write the code for the component, the declarative code, return. I'm not hitting the right keys. And then inside of here, we're going to start off with a couple of divs. I'm going to enter the class name. All of these class names were defined in that supporting styles file that we just created. I'm going to enter here to-do list. I'm going to go ahead and close the div. I'm going to enter one more div here. Go ahead and start off with the angle brackets. We are going to enter class name, and the class name for this one is going to be to-do. Oh, and I think I got that backwards. This is the to-do list. Go ahead and close that. And the other one is the app. So let me go ahead and change that. So app and to-do list. Now inside of here, what we're going to do initially is we're just going to list the to-dos that we have. And to do that, we're going to write the following. This is going to be to-dos, and we're going to map that. Each of the to-dos we're going to map to a function here. And this function is going to take two parameters, to do, and then the index, the item order that we're in. Then I'm going to go ahead and use fat arrows here. Oops. And after that, I'm going to write the body of the function. Inside of it, I'm going to write a component that we will write in a moment that will add our to-do. And so the key here is going to be index. Then we're going to have index as well, be index. Then the last property here is going to be to-do, and this is going to be to-do. Okay, so let me go ahead and close this tag here. And now we need to go ahead and write this to-do component. Now, before I go ahead and start writing that, let's just review what we did here. We created a list, our list, and we set that into the state of the component, which is app. Now, in the return part, we wrote declarative code that is going to render our list, and we have there a couple of nested divs followed by a to-do mapping to each of the items on the list, and then each of those values that we're pulling from our list of to-dos is being set into this to-do component. So the next thing to do is to write this to-do component, and we're going to do that above before app. This is going to be a pretty simple component. We're going to call it to-do, just like we specified. Then inside of here, this is going to take two things, to-do and index. And now we're going to write the body of the function. This is simply going to return, and here we will write our declarative code. Our class name is going to be to-do. And then inside of the div, we will write the description of the to-do. And we will enter here to-do dot text. Okay, so once again, what we did is we created an app component. We set our initial list. We walked through that list. This top component is the one that creates each of those items that are on that map. And so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and test this application. And we will do that by running npm start. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the console, and I'm going to go ahead and enter npm start. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything. Let me go ahead and go back to the list and take a look at it. Oh, first of all, this should be text, not test. So let me go ahead and change that. And let's see if that changes things. I still have a bug. Okay, let me go ahead and take a look. This is running on port 3000. And yes, we can see there the initial list of to-dos. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to be able to add onto this list. And in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and add a form and add as well the ability to detect when somebody adds something, to update the state of the to-dos, and then to handle that user input. Okay, we're back now on the code. We're going to go ahead and add right below our list the little form that will have a field that will allow the users to add a to-do. And so I'm going to call this component to-do, and we will write this in a moment. To-do form add to-do. And then we're going to pass here the add to-do function. And we will write this function also in a minute. Okay, so all we've done so far is we've added an extra component. They are at the end of our to-dos, where we will take input from the user. We haven't written yet the component, but we will in a minute. And we're passing to this component an add to do function. So let's go ahead and write that add to do. Add to do. And I'm going to use fat arrows here to define the body of the function. Inside of it, we will get a handle on the current list of to-dos, and we will call this new to-dos, because we will get the current list, and we will add to it the new item. And this will be the new item. And then we will set the new state with the new to-dos. Okay. And so that setting function was defined here, or the name of it was set here at the beginning. Next thing we're going to do is now we're going to write our to-do form. So let's go ahead and write that above our app component. We're going to enter here function to-do form. This is going to take that function, which is add to do. Then we're going to write the body of the function. And I'm going to go ahead and start here by the return declarative code. And I'm going to start off here with a form. This comes from HTML. On submit, and we will write the code to handle the unsubmit. For now, we will just give it a name here, which will be handle submit. This will be the function that we will write in a minute. Inside of it, we will have an input field. This is where the user will be able to type in the new to-do. And this input field here will have a type of text, a class name of input. Again, that comes from the styles that we copied and pasted into the app.css at the beginning. Input, the value will be entered by the user. And I'm gonna go ahead and enter it this way. And I left out setting the state for this form, this component. I'm gonna go ahead and create here the state of the data that is being entered into the small form, into the small field. And this, just like the one we created for our ToDos, is going to be value. This is what's going to be entered by the user. And then set value will be the function that lets us update that state. And so I'm going to use state again. And I'm going to go ahead and initialize that state as empty. Okay, now I'm going to go back here to the form that I was working on. And I'm going to enter here a message for the user, a placeholder. And I'm going to go ahead and enter a little message here, add to do. Then the last thing is to handle the on change. And we're going to handle that here. We will handle that here with the set value function that comes from the user state. And we're going to go ahead and access the value here. I'm going to go ahead now and close the tag. And we have one more thing to do. We need to write the handle submit function. I'm going to do that next. And I'm going to enter here const handle submit. Use fat arrows again to denote the function. Then the body of the function, we're going to prevent the default here to avoid creating empty ToDos. Then we're going to test for the value. If it's empty, we will return. Else we will add ToDo, which is the function that we passed in from the app component. And lastly, we will set value to empty. So another ToDo can be entered. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if this runs. I'm going to go ahead and clear here my terminal, and I'm going to go ahead and enter npm start. And it looks like I made a mistake. Let me go ahead and see. I wrote user state as opposed to use state. Let me go ahead and find the place. I believe that's the right. So let me go ahead. Yes, and now if we go back to the form, now we have an add to do. Let me say here, buy banana. Yes, it's working. So you can see there that we could add to the state. And we have now a reactive application with a few components that can keep state and that we can update by user input. So this is a pretty small application, but it still has a lot of things going on. And so this is a good one to try to understand the depth, try to understand everything that's going on, the connection between state and the components, the connection between the data and the component and the declarative code that's being written. And there's just a lot of things that one needs to get comfortable with when it comes to a new framework. And so this is a good example to get started.